I used some old steam bits from a prop to wire this, blow up this, forget about using this, and create this. As usual with a build-related projects, I started at the head. The idea here to mount this thing on a wall and have it lit whenever someone presses the doorbell. So I started off just doing a wee bit of self-tapping into the back of its skull or whatever this is, I'm not sure, so I was just going pretty careful with a wee pilot hole and a self-tapper. Needed some kind of back plate to mount it on, so I made this back plate. Fixing centers seemed quite handy for something else to keep in mind. But for now, I'm just mounting this bit of LED diffusion strip onto the back of the beast. A little bit of Sharpie just to cover up any indiscretions. A lot of countersinking. White was applied. Screws were reinserted. And then these nice standoff things worked well. So this is the part that will actually take the LED strip. The other part was just to fool people. This is a previous prop that had a boily kettle and a wiggly thing to make it look like it was doing something cool. But the steam bit I developed at the same time was what I was interested in. I worked out with a fan underneath. If I could keep the atomized water up in the air enough, it would look like steam and be safer. So I worked through a couple of versions of this to come up with something smaller, but not really small enough for this particular application. This little circuit here should power one atomizer. It's bought as a spare. And after doing a little bit of wiring to make sure I could run two of them off the one atomizer PCB, I said, great, because it worked. Twisting wires was necessary at this point, as was the soldering of the power button so that I could remind the power supply who was in charge. Set to 5 volts as recommended by the Chief Medical Officer. Steam, this is the idea here, and a couple of LEDs for eyes because it would be rude not to. But it's given me an alright steam effect, as good as I'm going to get. Good as I'm interested in getting. Wow. Didn't seem to need the fans on this occasion, so I'm going to go with that. So I will need to make a little delay so that the lights and the atomizers come on at the same time. So it takes a wee second for the atomizers to fire up. Right, anyway, now I can feed the cables through thing, testing each little channel as well, so I'm actually dimming that little 5 volt power supply, which is a little bit naughty because it's relying on below the power supply unit. It was coming from the 24 volts dimmed to the 5 volts atomizer load. Cut all this out and replace that and try and not ruin things in the future. And there's the hole there. So a new cheap little PCB, she only used a tiny little bit of current, so no wonder it completely fried just now. If I short it out, there must be no overcurrent protection. Anyway, atomizer circuit goes back on. Look at it. Can't wait to get back in there. A little bit of heat shrink, non-shrunk, so that I can still service it when I blow it up next time. and using these little JST connectors to make sure everything's nice and serviceable, because you know what they say, when the bull's on the wall you don't want to have to take it off again. But I do want it to work using this DMX dimmer and stick it in this box. The idea here being that I run a 8-core cable back from the bull's head into this, where I've got 30 channels of dimming running straight off DMX. There it goes in a little box. Some nice little plastic standoffs. Actually they were crap. Need to mount the XLR on the outside for the wired DMX connection coming in. Do have these wireless things, but hey, it's right next to the FARQ, so I should really just cable it while I've got the option. Now if I was being smart about this, I would have added some kind of reflection terminating resistor across that, because I don't think it does it on board the device, but here we are. And after making up a really cheap rubbishy DC connector that I must stop using, plugged it in to watch it DMX. And of course a green LED on the front, just not a red LED on the front, just to show that it's got power. And since it was 24 volts, I put it in series with another LED to save having to work out a drop resistor and current. Box lid, very nice. Up the ladder, mark a hole, drill a hole more, remove the drill. Can't show you how I did this. So the cables rather handily come out the back, and I thought it'd be a good idea to connect them up the right way to avoid any more embarrassing stuff. Dimmer fitted to the ceiling, as you would do in any situation. I could have done all this stuff with WLED and just made it a lot easier for myself, but I thought the beast itself deserved the respect of full DMX hardwired dimming. It seemed only fitting. And now the upgrade of the FARQ. This is the multi-award winning FARQ system. It was using a wireless DMX module. I want a wired connection out. So, very cheeky, little parallel from the one next door. And put the wireless bit back together. We check the thing, does its business. Yes, there was more contact closures coming over relays. These relays from RF senders. So, plan here is to use this to trigger the system that sends DMX. And as I've done many times in this, just finding a contact so that I can just close it externally. I'm going to use a reed switch on this though, because I want to connect it up to my doorbell, which uses a really nasty buzzer thing. And rather than interfere with the buzzer, I can just hopefully put this next to the relay and use the EMF to trigger the button, to trigger the FARQ, to dim the thing, to make the bull do its magic. So there's a magnet across it showing that it will close the circuit. So after very, very carefully putting the whole thing back together, I could test that this thing still works. So this should now trigger the said bull with a magnet, which it does. And I don't know what else you want from that. So, finding the sweet spot on this receiver, I can wait for some passing fool to press the bell and see the cow light up. It's not a cow, it's a bull.